So NPR is NPR stands for Natural Petroleum Radio, or Nice Polite Republicans, depending on how you look at it. And some people say, why do you say that? NPR, they're the good guys. Come on. They don't take Coke money. Yes, they do. And here's what else they do. They have misleading headlines like this. Bernie Sanders won't yet explain details of how to pay for Medicare for all. Okay, let's stop right there. Bernie Sanders has already explained many times how we're going to pay for Medicare for all. We're going to pay for it like all single-payer systems work, okay? Medicare for all over the course of years is going to cost around $30 trillion. Our current system costs around $50. That was revealed by a study funded by the Koch brothers, where they wanted to do everything they could to discredit Medicare for all, yet they still concluded that Medicare for all was cheaper than what we currently do. So we will all be paying less for healthcare. The difference is, instead of paying a for-profit insurance company that is looking to price gouge you and screw you, which is why we have one of the worst healthcare systems in the industrialized world. Oh, wait a second. We have the worst. Out of the industrialized world, we have the worst healthcare system. I mean, we're like 37th. We're 37th. There is no country that has anywhere close to our amount of wealth that has a system as broken as ours when it comes to health insurance. Nowhere close is it touches it. It's unheard of in other places. And maintaining that horribly corrupt system cost more money than doing Medicare for all, which means we would all pay less in healthcare. The difference is we would just be paying the government instead of paying these insurance companies. So technically, our tax bills would go up. Yes, definitionally, that's true. But it's just because we're not paying it in taxes now. We're paying an insurance company. Instead of paying an insurance company, we'd pay the government, but we'd be paying them less. It'd be like, hey, I'm paying Peter $300 a month for my car bill, and I get a shitty car. I can pay $150 a month for a better car, except I'll be paying Paul. Oh, wait, I have a problem with this because I'll be paying Paul more. Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't. So whenever someone says our tax is going to be raised, they're intentionally going after a misleading misinformation smear on Medicare for all. That's what they're doing. And they all know better, because what I just explained is not rocket science. It's not that hard to wrap one's head around. It's quite simple. You're just paying a different entity. I am incredibly shitty at math. I hated my accounting class with a passion. I wasn't a fan of econ that much either. But even I understand these basic concepts. They're not that hard. By the way, one of the reasons I really hated my accounting class was because I took it during the election in 2004, and my teacher loved Bush. He freaking loved Bush. TEQs wield a little bit of power. I learned this later in my life when I was on the other side of it and I was teaching. Those teacher evaluations, they wield a little bit of power. He did not get a very high one from me. Sorry, whatever. You're going to use our time. We're supposed to be learning accounting to fucking parrot your Fox News dogma about how much you love Bush. Fuck off. Anyway, and in 2004, I was less angry. I was about to say I was angrier, but I was like, no, actually, I was a little less angry in some ways. Anyway, neither here nor there. But so anyway, this is not rocket science, is my point. So right there, that headlining is misleading. What did Bernie Sanders actually say? Let's look at what Bernie Sanders actually said. Because if you bother to read, which by the way, I hate to focus on aesthetic things here, but I think it is worth noting that when they're trying to smear somebody, they intentionally find an unflattering photo of them. This is a picture of Bernie Sanders. He was probably in the wind. His hair's a little messy, and I know that happens to him some. But this is not a flattering photo of Bernie Sanders. They picked it out intentionally. Let's be real. I mean, and they do this all the time to Bernie Sanders. They do it to Tulsi Gabbard a lot, too. That's another one. When you look at articles trying to smear or discount Tulsi Gabbard, they always find the most unflattering photo of her they possibly can. Do the same to Bernie Sanders. This is by design. You really think this is a coincidence? You think it's a coincidence in the article where they want to smear a person, they find an unflattering photo? This is by design. This is why your media is failing you miserably. And this is why you're turning to a comedian in his living room with a black cat to find out what's going on in the mornings or afternoons, whenever it is you're watching it. But anyway, all right. So here's what Bernie actually said. Here's the actual quote. You're asking me to come up with an exact detailed plan of how every American, how much you're going to pay more in taxes, how much I'm going to pay. I don't think I have to do that right now. So what Bernie Sanders actually said was, I don't have the exact numbers of how higher every single person's tax bill is going to be. They have the gist of it, and the article even points that out. It's going to be a progressive tax. All that I'm saying is that here's more from Sanders' quote. All that I'm saying is that we have laid out a variety of options that are progressive. We'll have that debate. At the end of the day, we will pay for every nickel of Medicare for all, and it will save the overwhelming majority of the American people who will no longer pay premiums. When Sanders introduced Medicare for all, he also released a document listing potential ways to pay for the plan. These include raising taxes on the top earners and imposing a wealth tax for the richest Americans, as well as a 4% tax on Americans earning $29,000 a year and a new tax on employers. So basically, he laid out multiple ways of how we're going to pay for this in a progressive way, which, by the way, is what most other industrialized countries do. Pretty much all of them do. And the ones that have a more private-focused health insurance system, like Switzerland, they have a ton of protections on what those companies can and can't do. So it's nothing like ours. It is nothing like ours. And in most cases, the role for private insurance is very, very, very little, which is what Medicare for All would accomplish. So he lays out how to pay for it. They're just asking him, well, how much? Family X, are they going to pay X dollars more per year or Y dollars more per year? And he's saying, I don't have that exact number yet, which, by the way, is totally reasonable. And they use that answer. You see how Sanders laid out how he's going to pay for this, how it's cheaper, what exactly it's going to do. But because he didn't have the exact number for family X versus family Y and dollar amount X versus dollar amount Y, which is totally not necessary at this point in time anyway, here's the headline they came up with. Here's their headline. Bernie Sanders won't yet explain details of how to pay for Medicare for all. They use that as the headline. Meanwhile, throughout their very own article, they go into detail about how he laid out how he will pay for Medicare for all. But they're hoping that nobody reads past the headline. That's what they're hoping. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. And again, the nature of this show, I'm seeing every article for the first time. That's the point of the show. It's fun. It's goofy. People tweet me the articles that we talk about. So we get our news on together. So my point is that even with just skimming this thing, you see how full of shit it is. You know, it's not like I sat down and dissected this article for an hour and a half before this show started. I didn't do that. Just through seeing this, you identify this is BS. They're that shameless in how they recklessly arrange their data and have this misleading headline, this deliberately misleading headline. You think the person who wrote this article, person's name, Danielle Kurtzelben, you think Danielle Kurtzelben didn't know better, didn't see all this data where he's talking about how this plan would be paid for, how it saves us money, how it's more efficient and less expensive than what we do now. She knows all this. Yet still went with that headline. Why? Because the donor class doesn't want Medicare for all. And the donor class funnels money to NPR. Nice, polite Republicans. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own.
Get your